I found out my wife was cheating with at least 4 men, and 1 woman. Then she dropped a bombshell that cut to the core. So I thought that I had the perfect life, a little boy running around, a house on a lake, a pretty wife with a great job, and a great job myself. I had the American dream, having served in the Marines and being seriously wounded in combat. One night my little boy curled up next to me in the X, asking for a story to be told to him. I went into the total dad mode, complete with voices, wild hand gestures, and faces that had the little man captivated by what was coming from his dad. I noticed that my ex had been on the phone the whole time, and began to realize that something seemed not quite right. I noticed how angry she had been every time I found her phone, how the grocery store runs, and working late had become a daily routine. That is when she sent my son to bed, and began a tale that would ultimately cut me to the core, and devastate me for years to come. "I'm being blackmailed," she seethed through tears. "Someone is going to tell you something really bad, but I want you to know that it is not as bad as she is saying it is." I stepped into the bathroom, completely dumbfounded as to what she was possibly talking about. At that exact moment my phone rang, a ringtone that sliced through me like a knife, and was never used on my phone again. "Your wife has been sleeping with my husband for at least 4 years, has another boyfriend now, and all of them have had various 3-ways with each other." I soon learned that the vacation she took, to get a break from our very young son, was an excuse to use spring break to hook up with randoms, since her married boyfriend had dumped her. I found out that the work trip was an excuse for her, the girlfriend, and boyfriend, to go to a hotel together for a week. I found out that my son is not in fact my son, which was the most devastating part of the entire ordeal. The boy that I had seen born, the one that I called Little Buddy, the one that mowed the grass with me, worked on the truck with me, the one that was attached to my hip for every second together, was essentially gone. I have moved to another state very far away and spent years trying to piece my life back together, but I can't find myself dating anyone for more than a couple months, and I cannot bring myself to have feelings for anyone. I've tried to talk to the boy that I call my son, but the boy's real dad had the court order me to have no contact. I still see his face when I fall asleep every night, hear his quick and light footsteps pounding down the hall to ask me what we are doing today, and his little voice telling me, "I love you, Daddy. You are pretty much the best dad in the world, I think. We always have fun, right? Right, kid? You are right." Me, 52 male, just found out at least 4 of my 5 children, 33 female, 30 female, 28 male, 24 female, 14 female, are not mine. Wife, 51 female, won't say anything. Note: please do not use ancestry kits as a paternity test. If you genuinely want to check your child as your own, get a proper paternity test at your local medical lab. Ancestry tests are not accurate, and should not be used to test paternity. In my case, it simply raised the alarm to get a proper test. I apologize if this is not an appropriate sub to ask. I posted this on r/relationships but it was locked, and the mod suggested I ask on r/parenting. But I also want relationship advice on how to deal with my wife, so I want to ask for advice here, too. First of all, I'm sorry if this ends up being long and rambly. I am not really in the best state of mind. My world has been turned upside down over the last couple of weeks. I just want to write as much context as possible so I can get the best advice needed. For obvious reasons, I am not yet comfortable talking about this with my friends/parents/siblings. Background: I met my wife when we were in high school and we married in college. We have 5 beautiful children together. Really, I consider them a total blessing regardless of what I'm about to bring up, and up until a couple of weeks ago I thought that we had the perfect marriage. We were typical high school sweethearts, we go out together, we never fight. I feel like I've done everything a loving husband should do. I am saying this not to make myself out as the perfect husband. For example, my work has always meant I work long hours and maybe haven't always been there when she needed me, but I want to stress that I've never felt our marriage was in any trouble. And never in a million years would I ever have suspected my wife of being disloyal. She's always done everything she could to support me and take care of our children. Now, my eldest daughter recently had an ancestry test done. And the results of the ancestry test strongly suggested I was not her father. She confided this to me privately, showing me the results, and I could tell she was visibly upset by this. Of course, the first thing I did was reassure her that no matter what, she's my daughter and I'll always love her unconditionally. But secondly, the two of us decided to get an official paternity test since the ancestry tests are not completely reliable. It comes back and I am indeed not her biological father. This news really broke me. I'm ashamed to say I broke down in tears in front of my daughter. The combination of finding out about my wife's infidelity and how upset I was making my daughter by how I was reacting. I really wish I had kept it in for her sake, but I didn't. Following this, I asked my other children, except my youngest, to come and see me. I wanted to know the extent of my wife's infidelity. If it was a one-off, I could maybe work past it, especially given how long ago it would be. However, I didn't want to tell my youngest as she is still in school, a teenager, and really I didn't think it was appropriate to tell her yet. We tell the other three what has happened. I reassure them that I love them unconditionally and that I'll always be their dad, but that I need to know how long this has been going on. God, I can't begin to explain how touching their reaction was. They didn't care I wasn't their biological father, they were just upset at how heartbroken I was. I feel like the only thing that has kept me going these last couple of weeks is their unwavering support. So we have paternity tests for each of the three done. Not only are none of them my biological children, together 4 of my children have 3 different fathers. Which somehow made it worse. It's like she wasn't just having an ongoing affair, she was having multiple? I can't explain how this makes it worse, but it just does. So I confront my wife with this, expecting her to confess and beg for forgiveness. She doesn't confess. She doesn't even take it seriously. She says the tests must be flawed. All 4? How the hell am I supposed to take that seriously? I keep bringing it up and she keeps brushing it off, getting progressively more annoyed at me. When I bring it up, she will try and guilt trip me. We've been together since high school, do you seriously not trust me, etc. But how am I supposed to trust her in the face of such overwhelming evidence? Now that I have rambled and explained what has happened, I guess let me ask a few direct questions for advice. How can I reassure my children this doesn't change anything between us? I feel like the way I have reacted, total breakdowns, has made them second guess this despite however many times I reassure them. How do I handle my youngest daughter? I feel like our marriage is beyond saving and I will need to tell my daughter something. I don't want her to know the truth until she's older, but I also don't want my wife lying and making me out to be the villain. Is there any way at all, you think I could or should save my marriage? I've been with my wife my entire life, it's almost impossible to see a life without her. I know that the answer should be a clear-cut leave her, but we have 5 kids together. If there's anything that can be done to save our marriage, I want to consider it seriously. TLDR. Found out at least 4 of my 5 kids are not mine. Wife refuses to confess her infidelity. Unsure of how to do what's best for my children and marriage. Edit. Thanks so much to everyone for all the support and advice. I have not replied to as many comments as I should have, but I've read each and every one and taken your advice to heart. I'll continue reading any comments or messages you send me. Again, I can't begin to thank you for all your support. If this is resolved, I might post an update, but if she continues to lie, then I don't think I'll bother, as there's not much more I can add. From the advice in this and the r/parenting thread, I've decided to get second tests just in case some freak accident has occurred. Confront my wife with all 4 of my older children present. Tell my youngest of the situation. Ask her if she wants to have a paternity test. It will be entirely her decision. I'm 100% going to get some form of therapy. My mental state has really been deteriorating over the last couple of weeks, and I owe it to my kids to hold it together. Depending on whether my wife tells the truth, and what her explanation is, if any, I have not ruled out some form of counseling. But at the moment I think divorce is inevitable unless she changes her attitude drastically. Contact a lawyer and prepare for divorce, if it comes to that. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for the time you took to express your support and share advice. Edit 2. I guess I should clarify some things that people have been asking. How did the ancestry results suggest I wasn't her father? My family is entirely Irish. No relatives outside of Ireland other than my immediate family, and I even have the stereotypical red hair. My daughter's ancestry results showed nothing from the British Isles/Western Europe/Northern Europe. That's what set off alarm bells, but it's by no means conclusive, hence the paternity tests. Which two children share the same father? My two eldest daughters share the same father. How did your wife conceive your children? Our eldest daughter was not planned. All the others were planned. Each time we conceived several months after we started trying. Our first 3 planned children were both our ideas, while she pressured me into having our youngest. She was in her late 30s and wanted one last child before it was too late, and eventually I agreed. She was conceived several months after we started trying too. Are you infertile? I don't know. I've never had a fertility test done. But the fact that none of our planned children are mine makes me think that I might be. I will have a fertility test as soon as possible. Final update. I have been debating whether or not to post an update, because nothing was ever resolved. I decided I would post it here in case anyone is still waiting for one. I apologize for not updating early when I promised I would. My kids and I confronted their mother shortly after making that Reddit post. It really didn't go well. I think the prospect that no one believed her finally hit home, because she completely broke down and apologized profusely, but refused to explain herself or anything that would give me peace of mind. For the next few weeks we barely said a word to each other. I was hoping she was thinking it over, and I expected her to eventually sit me down and explain herself. I figured she was so far deep in a lie that got out of control, she needed time to think things over. Nope. I came home one evening to find she had committed suicide by overdosing. So I lost the love of my life, and I'll never know what mistakes she had made. I really wish I could go back in time and forget about it all. Whatever mistakes she made, I honestly wanted to work through it, and now I'm just riddled with guilt that I pressed her for an answer. The worst part of this entire ordeal was watching my kids work so hard to keep me together, after having lost their mother. Anyway, please tell your family you love them while you have the chance. Am I wrong for leaving my 3-year-old son after finding out he isn't mine and my wife cheated on me? I don't want to go into detail because I am still not divorced legally. Separated. Long story short, I found out that my child, or so I thought, was not actually mine. My wife cheated on me with her ex, I found out through text messages. She had been cheating on me on and off throughout our marriage. Found out too my wife never loved me, she only married me because she was in her 30s and I was a responsible guy that would make a good father. After finding out, I was devastated. I have always wanted to be a family man, and hearing this crushed me. I have met her ex in person before too. And finding out my son would grow up to look like him, well, that was too much. I decided to break things off completely with my ex. I don't want to raise another man's kid. And I want to be able to start a new relationship and have children of my own. However, even my parents are saying I am in the wrong, that I should not turn my back on my son. I don't agree, it hurts, but I think in 5 years I would have made the right choice. I, 36 male, just found out my son, 10 male, is not actually mine. Should I tell him? Not much to say. My wife and I are getting divorced because of her infidelity, and last month she threw it in my face she had been having an affair during our engagement and for the first year of our marriage, not the guy she is leaving me for. I got a DNA test kit from a drugstore, and sure enough my son is not actually biologically mine. I am completely destroyed, but I want to do what's right with my boy. He's still my son as far as I'm concerned, even if we aren't blood relatives. I've raised him for 10 years. His bio dad is long gone, by the way, and there is no hope of finding him, according to my soon-to-be ex. My dilemma is, should I tell my son? And if so, how old should he be and what not? I feel like he might want to know for medical history, although I'm not sure what good that would do if his bio father is long gone. I know he doesn't know now. My ex's only motivation for saying what she did was to cut me deep, and she succeeded. But I want to know what's the best course of action for my boy. TL, Dr. My son isn't actually mine biologically and I don't know if I should tell him or how long I should wait to do so. Edit. A few points to clear up. Yes, the test is valid. You purchase it at a drugstore but you have to submit the results to an official lab and it costs a couple $100. Second, I am not abandoning my son. I love him and I refuse to be without him and will gladly pay any child support required. Even if I wanted to back out of this situation, my attorney has told me that because my name is on the birth certificate, my child was born into my marriage and it's been more than 2 years since he was born, I cannot contest and refuse child support even with a DNA test as proof. Luckily my ex is making this somewhat easy. She and her new boyfriend don't really want a kid around getting in the way of their new romance. We are going through the divorce paperwork and I'm willing to let her out of paying child support if she gives me primary and majority custody. She seems eager to latch on to that. I don't care if I miss out on a few hundred a month if it means my son doesn't have to be around her and the new boyfriend too much and he leaves mostly with me. I cannot tell him now. He's torn up about this divorce and he knows his mom cheated and is leaving for another man. He doesn't really want to leave with her right now anyway. It's not set in stone yet, we are still in the middle of all the divorce paperwork and it's going to take a while to divide up everything. Update. I've got my son set up with a therapist for his first counseling session next week. I've informed the therapist about the situation so he can give me appropriate advice and feedback. I am leaning towards telling my son but not right now. Maybe in a few years. I'd much rather he find out from me than someone else. But I'll stick with what his therapist tells me is best for him. My ex has known all this time he was not mine but she doesn't know I did the test and I have no intention of informing her. I've just told her I don't care if he's mine biologically or not, which is both confusing and infuriating for her because I know she wanted to cause me pain and I've been hiding it well. I don't think she will say anything to our son. In her own weird way, she does love him and has only been purposely aggressive and hostile with me throughout our relationship, never our son. She's just very neglectful with him and is kind of like a kid with a puppy. She thinks he's cute and she does take care of him, when she feels like it and as long as it doesn't inconvenience her. But right now she's just too busy porking another guy to pay attention to him. And yes, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bitter right now. I just want to be rid of her by this point and for her to leave me and my son alone. Her giving me majority custody in return for me not pursuing child support is worth just getting the custody issue over and done with so I can cut her out of my life as much as I can.